Good evening and welcome to the November 10th, 2022 meeting of the Abington Township Board of Commissioners. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Brodsky. Rothman.
Here.
DePlacido.
Here.
Vaughn. Thompson.
Here.
Weingrab.
Here.
Henry.
Here.
Zapone.
Here.
Carswell. Spiegelman.
Here.
Bowe.
Here.
Driver.
Here.
Bowman. Vice President Vahey.
Here.
President Hecker.
Here. Please note that Commissioner Carswell is excused and Commissioner Vaughn will be joining us momentarily. May we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I apologize that I am not able to be present this evening in the room. I am recovering from COVID. And I wanted to just make a brief comments about public comment this evening. Our first two agenda items under new business. One will be the public hearing on the text and map amendment from Toll Brothers, and we will be taking public comment about that agenda item during the public hearing itself. And the second agenda item is a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2023 preliminary budget. And we will also be taking comment about the budget when we get to that agenda item. So the public comment on agenda items, which will be forthcoming momentarily, will be about everything else on this evening's agenda. And with that, we will proceed to public comment on agenda items. Is there anyone in the room that wishes to speak?
Yes, hello. First of all, tonight, I'd like to thank Commissioner Stuart Weingrad for spending over an hour on a recent Saturday discussing Abington Blight with me. I'm trying to be hopeful that this discussion will lead to the billion-dollar Raymour and Flanagan Corporation finally being forced to remove the garbage that surrounds their property on two sides. The tree-sized weeds that surround this property also need to go. Raymour and Flanagan has been allowed to create a haven for lantern bugs, lanternflies, rats, and mice in Abington. The sidewalks that are owned by Raymour and Flanagan are a hazard to public safety. It is difficult to be hopeful because I have spent over 6 months regularly emailing Kimberly Ham about the Raymour and Flanagan complex. In fact, I have an email from Ms. Ham that states, no excessive trash was found on the Raymour and Flanagan property. I need to ask commissioners how much garbage before it's excessive. Raymour and Flanagan has garbage that could fill many hefty bags sitting beneath tree-sized weeds. Please help Commissioner Weingrad. Other areas where Abington Township refuses to enforce ordinances, the Smile Center on Old York Road, a 5-minute walk from Commissioner Carswell's home, a dentist's office with the parking lot there is regularly lined with old masked glass and large cement fragments. Deep holes in the parking lot and sidewalks. Ms. Carswell, Ms. Ham, and Mr. Manfredi have photos. No improvement in a year and a half. The Edge Hill apartments that front Old York Road are missing yards and yards of curbs. A year and a half since I notified Ms. Ham, no improvement at all. The Crafty Crab on Old York Road, 5-minute walk from Ms. Carswell's home. The sidewalks are full of debris and unsafe conditions. I sent a photo to Ms. Carswell. Ms. Ham has photos. Mr. Manfredi has photos. So far, it remains the same. Bonnet Lane on Old York Road has a caved-in parking lot, dumpster trash, and rubble everywhere. Why, commissioners, is this being ignored? The Starbucks on Old York Road, another billion-dollar corporation, had a boulder-sized piece of cement sitting on their dilapidated sidewalk for months. All of Starbucks sidewalks are a safety hazard. Trash is in the parking lot as well. Why do I need to report this over and over to Ms. Ham? Ms. Ham should not feel bad about demanding repairs from a billion-dollar corporation. Mr. Manfredi, please do not use township money to buy banners that advertise Abington Township is a great place to live, according to Money Magazine. Obviously, the judges did not visit Abington Township. Hanging fancy banners over deplorable businesses is tragic. Instead, give the money to the Briarbush, the nature center that has been defunded by you. Stop using part-time employees in the street department. Full-time employees are badly needed for the budget. Nature and a safe environment now mean nothing in Abington. Residents and neighborhoods mean nothing.
Ms.
Land
Cabell, I'll ask
development
you to
with
please wrap up your
with no
comments.
end in sight is the only priority in Abington. Commercial code enforcement's not happening in Abington. Commissioners, at the very least, be honest. Residents should expect blight, more congestion, overwhelmed schools, higher taxes, a lower standard of living. Residents should expect tax money to go to everything that they don't want. Abington residents lose, commissioners win, Mr. Manfredi wins, land developers win.
Ms.
Last
Cabell,
thing.
please wrap up your comments. You have exceeded your 3 minutes.
Okay, last thing. Wawa stores open all night in Abington are unsafe for employees. The all-night stores are dangerous to the police and public. No open all-night Wawas in Abington. The well-being of the community should come first. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there other residents who are in the boardroom who wish to speak?
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Lorraine Zwolak, Z-W-O-L-A-K. I live on 756 Kirkwood Avenue, immediately adjacent to the Toll Brothers. I was going to say, give me a red light when I have 15 seconds to go. Immediately adjacent to the Toll Brothers property. I believe that Mr. Rothman, and this is only hearsay, has represented to you that the residents have no objection to Toll Brothers, but that is not true. I live on the corner of Kirkwood and Montgomery, and many people have objections, but they are afraid. And the reason they're afraid is because Toll Brothers has frightened them into believing that if they don't allow this carriage house development to be built, then Toll Brothers has told us they're going to put up big skyscrapers with all these beds for elder care. I don't believe that is true. However, I see my time is using up. I have 3 points that I want to raise today about the Toll Brothers project. I forget you can't lick your... It's a 3-pronged objection to the Toll Brothers project. The first is the decrease in property value. The second is Toll Brothers already has 26 developments right around here. We don't need another one. And the third one is the environmental impact, which I expected the environmental people to be here today. As to the first point, decrease in property value, this county itself conducted a study with its results published in March 2022, and that study said that if you live within a half-mile of open space in Montgomery County, the value of your house increases by $11,300, increasing property values in the whole county by $2.8 billion in market value. Conversely, by sticking a development right next to existing houses, they decrease in value by $11,300, so that every person in these neighborhoods is going to suffer a huge decrease in their property value. Now, you may say, well, that's not compensable under the law. But people who adjoin property, who paid more for their property because of the view, under Pennsylvania case law, can sue Toll Brothers and any entity that caused the obstruction of their view. I know I bought my house and paid extra money for the view, and I have a compensable damage in preventing this. Secondly, we asked Drew directly, if you let them go and build here on St. Basil's, what about the horse farm? And Drew said, well, Sister Dorothy Ann told me they have no plans for that. But 5 years ago, I went to Sister Dorothy Ann, and I also said, hey, what you going to do with Basil's if something bad happens? The neighborhood wants to buy it. And she says, we have no plans to develop that. And she now tells Drew Oh, the horse farm, we have no plans to develop that, but we're going to go back on our word about this other piece of property. So we're going to end up with Toll Brother houses everywhere because unfortunately Drew accepted representations that were not made to him, I believe, in good faith.
Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to wrap up your comments. We're approaching the 3-minute mark.
Yes. The carriage houses that they want to build are going to cause a huge environmental impact. There is an increase of $160 million spent by Montgomery County taxes, and Mr. Weingrad, you might know about this, of the money being spent to increase environmental accountability for these developments that pollute stormwater and cause stormwater. And I understand that you've engaged in some discussions on things like this pollution and this stormwater drainage. The taxpayers, us, are going to have to spend that $140 million extra to account for all that polluted stormwater caused by the carriage development. There's other things I want to say. I just want you to take this with you. Nobody in the neighborhood wants it. Nobody's saying, great, build the carriage houses. Toll Brothers lied to the residents and also, on a hot mic, thought they couldn't be heard, but also accused residents on zone meetings of being drunk. And we heard them making fun of our neighbors. I don't believe Toll Brothers is acting in good faith, and I would hope that you seriously reconsider this zoning issue, which is not going to bode well for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone remaining in the room that wishes to speak before we move to Zoom? Okay, so let's invite any resident who's on Zoom who wishes to speak.
Ms. Lehman, you're unmuted.
Laura Lehman, Meadowbrook. I'm not sure I understood what you said at the beginning, so please don't start my time yet. I want to understand, is Toll Brothers and the budget going to be handled separately when we get to those issues?
Yeah, I didn't interrupt the resident because she got up, but we are taking public comment during the public hearing on the text and map amendment. And we are also going to take a public comment specific to the budget when that agenda item comes up.
So in other words, another 3 minutes for the budget and I can talk about other issues now, and another 3 minutes for St. Basil's, I can talk about other issues. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. So, and I hope this lady knows that she will have another opportunity and doesn't leave right now. You might want to tell her if she's looks like she's going. So I actually sent all of you information about the budget, and I'm going to mention some of that now because I know my time will be too short when we get to the budget. And so I appreciate you having some extra time. I hope it's more than 3 minutes for a 789-page budget. But I also want to discuss the fact that you have we are paying $75,000 for a North Carolina firm to come in and tell us what we can do to meet the needs of the residents while you keep ignoring what we ask. We've asked you very specifically to deal with the budget by giving us the documents early. As you saw, because I sent it to you, Cheltenham gave their documents out in September. You withheld our documents and then didn't even post them on the main page until November 6th, which was days before this meeting. So, or it might have been the 4th, but still days before this meeting. Not appropriate. That is completely inappropriate, and you're withholding information that we need. Plus, our only comments come here at a time when, if you made major changes to this budget document, you would not meet your December deadline. So I'm just going to deal with that issue right now, that withholding the documents has happened year after year with Mr. Manfredi. putting documents in a way that we cannot find the information, and it's all muddled up with 400 extra pages of absolute nonsense that has nothing to do with the budget. It's lovely, and if you want to print it in a separate document, I'm sure some people will enjoy it. It's not budget information. And we need to get this kind of nonsense, which is setting us up for corruption. When you take away our ability to oversee our budget, to oversee the people who are managing our safety and our well-being, it's absolutely inappropriate. So I would like to see that change. And the $75,000 or $78,000, whatever it was, consultant that is supposed to be working on getting our needs done actually had a $4 million lawsuit against them in the last township. How did they even get hired? The parks people don't even know the names of our parks and can't pronounce them.
Ms.
Why
Lehman,
are we
please wrap
not
up your
using-
comments. You're approaching your 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll wrap it up. And I appreciate you giving the extra time because that's what should happen. And I appreciate that you're respecting at least that aspect. Thank you. I'll wait till my next 2 times to speak.
Thank you. Seeing that there is no additional public comment, we will now move on to the consent agenda. And for that, I will turn to Commissioner Laurie Schreiber.
Thank you. We're going to start with the consent agenda. A motion to approve the consent agenda items A through F, and I so move.
Second?
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Before we actually take the vote, I know that Commissioner Bowl wanted to speak to item F on the consent agenda. Commissioner Bowl?
Well, thank you, President Hecker. I'll make this very quick. I think there was a resident in touch with the board today regarding the proposed signage and time-limited parking on Tague Avenue. I just wanted to thank everybody and ask everybody for their support tonight. I wanted to thank, in particular, Officer Al Freed for working with me for over 2 years on this. Before I was even a commissioner, after the election, I was called and emailed by the residents who were very frustrated. This is one of these situations of businesses acting within the law, but as bad neighbors. And as a result of those behaviors, we've spent a couple years, with a slight pause during the pandemic, investigating ways to allow the residents on the street to have a better parking situation without causing unintended consequences and minimizing those unintended consequences. And the APD has been really wonderful there. The resident expressed some concerns. I addressed those with him today. I just wanted to sort of be transparent about that. He still has concerns. I share some of those concerns. This is not a cure-all. It's not a fix 100%, but it is a way to address the residents' concerns about parking. We've lived with this for a while and come to the conclusion that this is the right way to proceed at this moment. So nothing is ever fully carved in stone, but I want to ask for the board's support tonight on this consent agenda item that has already been discussed. We've worked on it for a couple years with the residents who are most directly affected, and I want to thank Mr. President Hecker for the opportunity to talk with the board. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Bowl. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda carries. We have no unfinished business this evening, so we will move forward to our new business. The first item of new business, as I mentioned earlier, is a public hearing, and for this, I will turn it over to Solicitor Clark.
Thank you, Commissioner Hecker. If we could have a motion to open the public hearing?
Okay.
So moved. Second.
Do we need to vote on that?
You do. A roll call is not necessary.
Roll call vote? Okay,
No,
so
a voice vote is fine.
A voice vote. All those in favor of opening the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The hearing is open.
Thank you, Commissioner Hecker. This is a public hearing to consider adopting Ordinance 2199. Ordinance 2199 is an ordinance amending Chapter 162 zoning by adding a new article. and since my Roman numerals are bad, it is XVIIA, to establish an AR age-restricted carriage home overlay district by adding a new land use category identified as age-restricted carriage home dwelling unit, and by adding a parking use requirement for age-restricted carriage home dwelling unit, and to add age-restricted carriage home dwelling unit to the comprehensive use matrix, and by amending the Abington Township zoning map to establish an AR age-restricted carriage home overlay district. Before we proceed, I have 3 exhibits that I'd like to mark for the record. Township 1 is the ordinance number 2199 that I just referenced. Exhibit number 2 is the proof of publication, indicating that the notice of this hearing was published 2 times in a local newspaper between October 28th of 2022 and November 2nd of 2022. And Township 3 is a certification that the property was posted by the Township Zoning Officer, Sean Littlefield. The applicant is represented this evening by Attorney Lou Colagreco, who is on Zoom. Mr. Colagreco, do you have any exhibits you wish to mark as part of the record?
I do not.
Okay. So after discussions with President Hecker, Mr. Colagreco, you and your witnesses will just be made available for any questions by the board and any members of the public who may have questions. So at this time, if any members of the board have any questions for the applicant, it would be appropriate to ask them now.
Who calls on me if
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Rothman.
if you're not here and can't see me? More so just wanted to make a comment, and maybe there is a question component to it that either the township solicitor or Mr. Colagreco can respond to. We've been through many meetings in the neighborhood, multiple here, and then conversations privately between myself and St. Basil's, and also with Toll Brothers. And my understanding, for clarity to those listening or those who watch this later, is that many of the concerns that have been brought up by the residents concerning whether there were to be, how far the berm would be from houses, how many homes together, the concern about roads being opened up into the neighborhoods and such, which we've gone through as a board, that I support the concerns that were brought forth by the community to Toll Brothers, and we'll hope that when we see land development materials, that those are reflected in there with the voice of the residents there. To clarify a comment that was made earlier by a resident, which is not part of this public hearing, but deserves a response. No, it was not a situation where I myself was advocating for this process to go forward, and for St. Basil's not to remain open space. But in the conversations we've had as a board, conversations with council, for all the parties, it does seem like something would be able to be done, and could be a life care facility. So my comments to my colleagues are that the residents that you heard at length over the course of the last few months was that, for lack of a better term, the best of a bad scenario would be the 55-plus carriage home option that was presented by Toll Brothers. And I think that there will be some hard work and some strong and serious discussions back and forth with Toll Brothers as they submit the materials to the board and to our the township staff for approval. But my hope is that the conversation remains open, that we have a good back and forth, and that we are able to get all the information from the Toll Brothers representatives to answer any questions that the residents have or that you, my colleagues, have. So I suppose that that's all I have to say, and that there's not really any questions in that regard, but I do thank the township staff that has worked to help answer questions that I've had over the course of the last year and a half, or more than that at this point, and to help me respond to the questions of the community. And I hope that we'll continue to do that, so that in, maybe just in my words, in the name of the residents, that the lesser of evils can come about in the form of a semi-desired community there. So I do want to thank those that have worked with me and had the conversations and pushed me and informed me, the residents, so that I could advocate for you as well as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rothman. Are there other members of the board in the room that have comments or questions?
I have a question. I don't know if you can see us, Tom, so I'm going to go ahead. This is...
Yeah, go ahead. No, I
Okay.
can't. I'm actually looking at a picture of myself on the screen.
Okay. All right.
Commissioner Hecker who is speaking. That's over there, right in front of you, Commissioner Schreiber,
Right here.
actually in the room.
I'm wondering if somebody can remind us what the current zoning is. Like, if we do not do this text amendment, what could go there? And kind of speaking about what you were just addressing, Commissioner Rothman.
Mr. Colagreco, do you want to address what the current zoning of the property is?
I can. Community Services District. Essentially, you could have another institutional use, a school, or you could have, as we presented to the neighborhood and to the various commissions over the past year, you could have a senior living facility. I'm not sure exactly what the correct zoning terminology is for it, but that's a permitted use here, and we have a development partner. I take objection to the characterization that we threatened anyone with that type of development. We presented information, just like the question that was just asked, as to what could be developed there under existing zoning. And we produced a plan, and we said this is what could be developed here under existing zoning. So that could be developed there as well. And we were very candid throughout the entire year and a half of neighborhood planning and meeting, very transparent, that if that's the desire, just let us know in 2020 or 2021, and that's what we will pursue. We were advised at that time to move on and explore other residential options. We were told that the school district is overloaded. Could we age restrict the houses? And that's what we've done. But to circle back to the original question, it's an institution, in my estimation, it parallels an institutional type district as is, mostly parroting what's already there, an institutional use, a school use. I think you'd have libraries there, but you can also have this senior living type arrangement, which would have been the alternative option we would have explored. We made no secret about that. We were responding to the same question that was just asked. We were responding to that question, and we showed what that could look like. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do any other commissioners have questions of the applicants? Yep.
Very easily. Succinctly state for me in 3 sentences or less the basis of your objection. Succinctly. Yeah.
What?
This legal basis, the succinct basis for his objection. For the objection. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I think that
I don't think Mr. Calagreco is raising any objections.
I'm not objecting to anything. No, I was just answering the question. I have no objection to anything.
Are there any other commissioners who have questions of Mr. Calagreco or any of his witnesses? Since there do not appear to be any further questions from members of the board, Commissioner Hecker, you can now allow public comment and questioning of Mr. Calagreco and his witnesses from any of members of the public who are present or online.
Okay.
We ask that you, if you are going to make public comment, that you give your name and your address.
Thank you, Solicitor Clark. Let's start with any residents who may be in the room that wish to speak to this.
Can you please tell me what witnesses, experts, or persons are present on behalf of Toll? Mr. Calico?
Yes,
Can you
yes,
please tell
yes.
me? Yes.
We have Brian Theron, who's the project manager for Toll Brothers. We have Sandy Koza, who's our traffic consultant, and Jeff Madden.
I'm
who
sorry,
is
what
the
was
sti-
that name? I can't hear you.
Sandy Koza is the traffic consultant. Brian Theron works with Toll Brothers in charge of this project. And Jeff Madden works with Eastern States Engineering. He is the civil engineer who, if this zoning amendment goes through, will be engineering the land development plans for the project.
All right, I'm not going to ask you to repeat that. I am having a little bit of a problem understanding you. Do you have any environmental engineers with you today?
No, we do not.
Have you done any environmental impact studies?
The engineers have done cursory engineering impact studies to identify wetland area, stream tributaries, things that you would ordinarily look at the preliminary stages of the development. Yes, we've done preliminary, if that is what you consider environmental. We've done
No,
that work.
specifically, you have not done any studies on the migration of the butterflies and the hummingbirds that pass through our area every year, and which are now
No,
an endangered species.
there have been no studies on the butterflies and the birds that pass through the area over the year.
And I have seen some of your diagrams of the water flow that you believe where the flood zones would be. What exact environmental studies have you done to determine the flood zones affecting the residents in the area of the school?
Jeff, do you want to pick up on that? Jeff Madden, if you can hear me, those in the audience, is our civil engineer. Jeff, why don't you answer that question?
Sure. So far, we've done preliminary
Please
work.
identify yourself.
Yes, Jeff Madden, ESE Consultants, the civil engineer on the project. To date, we have not done too much environmental work because we're only in the sketch plan phase of the project, but we have represented on our sketch plans the FEMA flood lines that would impact the Pennypack Creek tributary on our site, as well as existing tree lines, steep slopes, and the like on the site proper.
So you are actually unaware of the flooding that occurs on all the streets adjacent to your site proper?
We have heard from the residents that there is existing water problems, and we have done some preliminary estimates on the pre-development site where the water would flow. And it does, we can see where the existing water would go, and when we do our proposed design, we will mitigate and help to reduce, per the township's codes and DEP standards, the flow of the water to try to alleviate some of that congestion and flow of water to those areas.
Thank you, sir, but your answer just now was no. You have not studied and you are not aware of the degree of flooding that goes on in the properties surrounding your site. Your answer was
All
no.
of that will be flushed out during the land development process.
Okey doke. So you're going to be proposing to this group of commissioners and to residents that you are going to build 95 or 100 or how many hundreds of carriage houses with all kind of driveways, and you have not done anything to even determine what it is like on those side streets when the rain comes down.
Ma'am, I can tell
I
you
think
this
the
much.
answer was no.
I
I'm
can
sorry,
tell-
I shouldn't beat a dead horse.
I can tell you this much.
Mr. Caligreco, Ms. Wallach, I'm going to interrupt here for a second.
Sure, I thought I was allowed to ask questions.
You are, but you're asking questions about land development. This is not land development.
No, I was
This-
asking questions about environmental impact.
Okay, that will all be explored when the applicant submits their application for land development. Stormwater studies, traffic studies, everything along those lines will have to be part of their land development application. This is just to determine whether or not a particular use will be permitted at the site.
I understand, sir, but I also understand this. I would think that their purchase of the property is contingent upon them getting the zoning variance. And if they don't get the zoning variance, then the sale won't go through. And that's probably a lot of the reason why they haven't done these studies, because they don't actually own the land yet. So my problem is...
There is no zoning variance. This is a text amendment. They are trying to get the zoning changed for the property. Once the zoning is changed for the property, they will have to submit land development applications.
Okay, I don't even want to get to that point. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. But
I don't
your
believe...
questions were land development related questions, which in many ways are not appropriate for this hearing.
I thought I was allowed to ask questions. I'm sorry.
But they should be about the issue at hand, which is a proposed text amendment, not about a land development application.
All right? I am trying to understand the background to even requesting a text amendment. You're asking me to say, you can ask questions about the text amendment, but no questions actually about the text amendment.
No, but you're asking land development.
But isn't the text amendment directly related to what the land is going to be developed as?
This is about the use that will be permitted on the property.
All right. My questions are directed to the use of the property as a carriage house.
Then you can continue to ask your questions, but they need to be related to the text amendment, not to the land development, which will be at a later date.
All right, Mr. Clark, I apologize. All right, look, wait. I apologize. I'm just trying to convey to all of you that this proposal of a carriage house development was presented to us as a fait accompli. And if we didn't agree, he even admitted it. Oh, yeah, we didn't mean to scare him, but yeah, we're going to build this big, old age facility, holding facility. All I'm trying to say at this point is that if you want to amend text or supplement text or whatever you want to do, I want to understand at this point, before you even get there, why you're even considering this.
Do you have any further questions of the applicant related to the text amendment?
I'm trying.
Okay, but you can't continue to ask land development questions. You're asking questions about environmental studies, which have nothing to do with the text amendment. You're asking questions about stormwater studies, which have nothing to do with the text amendment. This is only about a proposed use. It's not about the actual development of the property.
Right, but once you fellas propose the use, you can't put the brakes on that stuff.
They still
So
have to
I
go
am
through land
trying
development. If you
to,
have additional questions regarding the text amendment, you can ask them.
all right?
You continue to ask questions regarding land development, that's not going to be permitted.
All right, well, then, if my questions are inappropriate, you can stop me. I'm doing my best to keep within your parameters, Mr. Clark. I have a question for Mr. Caligreco. I understand that Mr. Toll recently died in the beginning of October. And it has come to my attention that he is, in fact, Ukrainian. When you are proposing to build carriage houses on this land, instead of asking for a text amendment have you considered that Toll would develop a Ukrainian memorial park that you could then take as a tax deduction, much like Mr. Trump did in New York, and we wouldn't even have to go through all this because it would still retain its institutional use. You could get a tax deduction, and it would draw visitors to the area, yet still retaining the character of the area. That was a question of Mr. Delgado.
I'm going to parrot what Mr. Clark just said. If it's a question pertaining to what we now have pending, I'd be more than happy to answer it. I have no knowledge and have no ability to comment on what you just requested, the question you just asked.
Would you reconsider asking the county or the township to adopt a zoning ordinance if you discussed that with your tax lawyers and got a solution that we would not have to ask for such a a zoning text amendment?
Ma'am, I have been retained to assist Toll Brothers in developing the property as proposed before the township over the last year and a half. So that question you just asked is not appropriate, in my opinion, for this hearing this evening.
All right. Well, then perhaps you can direct me to one of your witnesses who can answer that question.
No, none of them will answer that question. As to parrot what Mr. Clark, or to repeat what he just said, there's a 3 or 4 page text and map amendment before the commissioners, which has been vetted more than any ordinance draft I've ever been involved with in 38 years. We've been to more committees, more community meetings. We've outreached with everybody who's asked us to meet with them. If there are other uses that people want to see explored from the property, to me, that's beyond the scope of this hearing. This hearing is this ground appropriate for the carriage home proposal that Toll has advanced and has received recommendations from everybody who's reviewed this.
Well, with all due respect, sir, questions were raised at these community meetings, and you would say no more time and cut people off. So as soon as you had people that asked about the pathways and all that other stuff, you cut the rest of the people off, and you were under the...
Wallach, do you have a question about the text amendment?
Sir, if you don't mind, you didn't interrupt him.
Okay.
I would ask that you don't interrupt me.
I didn't interrupt you when you were asking questions about alternative uses of the property and whether or not they've considered it, which again is not relevant to the hearing in front of us this evening. Do you have any questions for the applicant regarding the text amendment?
Sure. Then my question, I guess, is directed to you. How do I lodge a formal objection to amendment of the text?
You're doing it right now. I'm sure every member of the board it's crystal clear to all of them that you object to the text amendment. And if you are unhappy with whatever decision the board makes tonight, you have a right to appeal to the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas.
Thank you for your help, Drew.
He's not supposed to be a Toll Brothers lawyer.
Are there any other members of the public who are in the room who have questions for the representatives from Toll? And if you don't want to ask questions, there'll be an opportunity to make public comment if you just want to make public comment. Mr. Hager, there are no additional residents in the room who wish to ask questions or make public comment, so we should move to those who are online.
Thank you, Solicitor Clark. It appears that we have 2 residents that wish to speak.
Tobin, you're unmuted.
Mr. Tobin? Mr. Tobin?
Maybe skip and go back to him.
Yeah. Let's go.
Ms. Lehman, you're unmuted.
Laura Lehman, Meadowbrook. That was just a disgusting display. Mr. Clark knows 100% that the residents do not understand the difference between text amendments and variances and so on, which in fact, Mr. Rothman should have given a primer on that, and the township should have a policy of giving a primer. But what is truly disgusting is that in all the prior meetings, Toll Brothers was allowed to talk land development, land development, land development, and completely confuse the land development with the application for the ordinance. Nobody sought to straighten that out with them and say, I'm sorry, Mr. Colagreco, this is not land development. Your issues here about where you're putting the houses and so on are land development. Okay, if you're putting in a text amendment. So how this is being done over and over again is disgusting. And then also you have an obligation when you create, Mr. Colagreco is creating for us something to add to our zoning and has not shown us where else it might be affected. We have not had a statement, although we have asked. We have not had a statement from the township that once this ordinance is there as a, by the way, spot zoning ordinance, it will affect other properties in this manner. Or maybe another property has 30 acres now and might join with a property to get 40 acres. And none of that has been explained while you were focusing the residents on land development, land development, land development. And at the last meeting, Mr. Colagreco said, oh, well, we don't really have to adhere to that. I talked about that for the last 5 meetings, but we don't necessarily have to do that. And that's true. Once it passes this ordinance, anything that fits within this ordinance, he can do. And you know that, Mr. Clark. You know that, Mr. Hecker. You know that, Mr. Rothman, but the residents do not. And it's sheer fraud to allow this to be done in that manner again and again and again. The first time I saw it was with the Wawa, where they refused to show us where else a gas station could be built. And literally since then, it has been text amendment after text amendment, where you have deluded the public and you have preyed upon the fact that they don't understand variances, etc. And that has to stop. This particular application is in violation of our zoning ordinance. There's an ordinance on page paragraph on page 117, section 1800, which says, hereafter no land shall be used or occupied, no building or structure shall be erected, altered, used, or occupied, except in conformity with the regulations established in this ordinance. Toll Brothers wants to change the open space directives of that ordinance to suit themselves and to allow buildings to be in the middle of the view instead of open space. That's illegal. Not to mention that it is spot zoning. And although Mr. Clark has said over and over again, he doesn't believe it's spot zoning, meaning maybe since nobody can afford to protest against it, he could win in court, okay? That it's not spot zoning, but it is. It is for the benefit at this point only of this applicant. And that's what spot zoning is about. It's illegal to zone something for one applicant. If there are other applicants, you have not shown them. So this is illegal because it violates our ordinance. It's illegal because it's spot zoning, which is illegal in Pennsylvania. And it should be illegal because you are preying on the lack of knowledge of residents when it's your job to see to their health, safety, and welfare. This is not, and I would like to ask Mr. Colagreco whether Toll Brothers, not too long ago, had $329 million worth of claims against them for terrible construction on properties that was documented in the Inquirer called Rotting from Within. And I would like to know, Mr. Colagreco, has Toll Brothers made good on those claims? And when I say made good, were the homeowners made whole before you came to Abington Township to build in your inimitable fashion?
Again, ma'am, that questions beyond the scope of what's in front of the township tonight, so I won't be commenting on that.
So if we have a builder who is proposing to build in our township, but has hundreds of millions of dollars of claims against them, that's very much in the scope of whether we should or should not allow an ordinance that would allow you to do this. And at the moment, that's the only thing that this ordinance allows to be done, is your proposal, which you now claim is apparently whatever you want it to be. But you were allowed to do land development over and over and over again at every meeting. And that's disgusting. So I would like to have an answer as to whether you still have all those claims against you, because we should not be catering to developers who want
Ms.
to.
Lehman, thank you, but your time has concluded. We actually let you go over. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I do not see anybody else on Zoom who wishes to speak. Mr. Clark, are we good to proceed?
Yeah, we have a resident in the room who wishes to make comment.
Okay.
I'll give you my name.
And your
Adele.
address.
Adelekubel. And I live in Abington.
You have to give your address for a conditional use.
1848 Ambler Road. Mr. Clark, do you represent the Toll Brothers or do you represent the Abington Township citizens?
I'm the solicitor for Abington Township.
So who do you represent?
I represent Abington Township and the Board of Commissioners.
Do you represent the citizens?
Ms. Cabell, please, do you have a question for the
That is
applicant?
my question.
No, okay, and I've answered it twice now.
What is
and
it?
and
You
I'm not
represent
gonna-
the board?
and I'm not going to answer it a third time.
No,
Do
you
have a-
didn't.
Do you have a question regarding the
Obviously, it doesn't
application?
seem you represent the citizens of Abington. You only represent the administration and the commissioners, and that's it.
Do you have a question for the applicant, or do you have a comment on the text amendment that's before the board this evening?
I do not believe that you are representing the best interests of Abington Township's residents.
Adele, you have to answer questions, you have to ask questions about the text amendment.
And that upsets me because I do believe the taxpayers of Abington are paying for the solicitation services that you provide, but not to the residents. That's unusual, I would think.
Adele, please.
Commissioner Hecker, there are no further residents in the room who wish to speak. Although there was a resident who appeared online who wanted to speak, he seems to have disappeared. So unless there are no further questions from any members of the board, it would be appropriate for there to be a motion at this time.
A motion to close the public hearing,
A
Solicitor
motion to
Clark?
close, excuse me, I apologize. Yes, a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The hearing is closed.
Now, a motion to either approve or reject the text amendment would be in order at this time.
Commissioner Bowman?
I'll make a motion to approve. the
Yeah,
text
make a
amendment.
motion to approve the text amendment. So, there we are.
Okay, it has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion is approved.
Thank you. Solicitor Clark, would that motion to approve the text amendment also subsumes the map amendment
It
that's
does indeed.
part of that?
It does.
Yeah, I
indeed.
thought
It's the
so.
text and map amendment were approved.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate the time devoted to this matter.
Thank you. Okay, I will now turn this back to Commissioner Schreiber to continue with new business.
Item B, hold on one second. Sorry about that, I'm having a microphone issue here. Item BOC 07-111022, motion to adopt the fiscal year 2023 preliminary budget as the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have comments or questions from members of the board? I'll start within the room. Just feel free.
Commissioner Weingrad is waving his hands.
Commissioner Weingrad.
Thank you, President Hecker. I want to thank Manager Manfredi, his team, and the directors of all the departments, and of course, the Chief of Police, for ensuring that the residents will continue to receive these essential services in a first-class manner. And I thought they did an excellent job in piecing everything together, and of course, at no tax increase for our residents for 2023. I picked up a couple things, and now that I had a couple, we had a little bit of time to digest it. And this is a couple things, just food for thought that I see, that there are employees or personnel expenses that are paid, or human capital paid through ARPA, and it looks like there are 5 employees for that. We're going to have to make tough decisions because those ARPA funds are not going to last forever, and when those ARPA funds go away, so does the funding for those employees. So it's just something, food for thought, and I'm sure that Manager Manfredi and his team and the Board of Commissioners will come up with something, but it's just something I think that we have to look at in the future. The second part is our pension, and that we allocate about, $4.5 million or so for the MMO, and it's a very, very big expense. But this is something, food for thought, that we all have to think about, that what are we going to do in the future? It's extremely important to our employees, to the police, to the other employees, to make sure that these pension benefits it's fully funded, and that so when they retire, they'll be able to tap into this. Unfortunately, it's not something that you can see. It's not something like a street, that gets paved or anything like that you can see right away. But I would implore everybody to really think about this, into the future, and what we can do to make sure that those funds are there and to keep our township on sound financial footing and meet our obligations in the future. But in going through the budget, I approve it, and again, I commend Mr. Manager Manfredi and staff for what they've put together.
Thank you, Commissioner Weingrad. Other comments from commissioners in the room?
It's Commissioner Rothman.
Thank you, sir.
I figure I'll make it a little easier for you over there. In reviewing the budget, there are multiple dynamics in and around Alverthorpe Park that have been focused on over the years, and that I think we will, without it being a pandemic, without it being, knock wood, that there's no further implications of the pandemic, that we'll be able to get some of those things done and continue progress that I think was being made in the past at Alverthorpe and other parks. Manor Woods, right across the street, a project that we looked into well before I was even on this board, that will help alleviate concerns of residents there, that there could be a football stadium or something else outrageous that would go into that open space. I mention that because I do think that as we move forward in the name of what Stu mentioned, decisions moving forward to enhance our green space, to preserve it the best we can. I don't believe we have much control over certain situations where such green space is not township property and then is sold in private deals. But that's an area where I would recommend that we try to be forward-thinking as well. And I'm really happy with this budget. I think that we do have a lot of tough decisions to make every year, and we came through a really tough dynamic of that a year ago, right? And I applaud everybody in this room that was part of getting us to where we are. But I do think we need to really keep looking at the future, and particularly the massive dynamics of the expense, because we do want a police department that has the resources they need. We do want employees to want to work here and stay here and continue to make this a place that gets recognition on the top 50 list that we were all and are also proud of. So thank you, Manager Manfredi. I know it's not an easy job, and I know that not only residents, but also we don't make it easy for you. And I don't think that part's going to change. But I think that there's a lot that we have to start looking at already for the future, and I'm hoping that we can have conversations throughout the year and get the community involved so that they can see where that money is going for the things that aren't like what Stu was talking about, that are always invisible. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Rothman. Are there other commissioners in the room that wish to comment?
Lori, Commissioner Schreiber.
Thank you, Commissioner Schreiber.
You're welcome. So I very much appreciate as well all the work that's gone into this budget, and of course myself as well as probably all the residents of the township appreciate that there won't be a raise in taxes. However, as Commissioner Weingard just put out so well, that the ARPA funding is going away, the pension is going to continue to rise, and we won't be in this situation most likely next year. So, you know, I'm not saying that we should raise taxes now. I know people are struggling, but I am saying that most likely I would assume we are going to have a raise in taxes next year, and I think people should be aware of that. I know we don't know that for sure yet, but want to put that out there.
Thank you, Commissioner Schreiber.
President Hecker, it's Commissioner Spiegelman, if I may.
You may, sir.
I will be brief, of course. Everyone knows that last year the budget process was unbelievably difficult. I think for those of us, for everyone who's been here a relatively short time, and us veterans, safe to say the most difficult budget process we've ever been through, reflective of the unprecedented challenges of the almost surreal times in which we live. The work that went into that budget, the difficult decisions, and the sacrifice of every single taxpayer dealing with that tax cut that nobody liked, but that was absolutely necessary. All of that is what got us to where we are today with this far more pleasant, far friendlier budget. As my friends and colleagues just commented, we know that we're going to be faced with tough decisions to come, and I think that if we face budgeting, and I know we will, if we face budgeting in a mature way, those decisions can be made in a gradual and far gentler way than what was absolutely necessary last year. And again, just to everyone responsible for this budget, thank you. But I do want everyone to know that it was the sacrifice of the residents, of every one of us who pays taxes, that helped get us to this point. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Spiegelman. Any further comments from commissioners in the room?
President Hecker, I'd like to make a quick comment. This is Commissioner Bohl.
Thank you, Commissioner
the few years that I've been on the board, there's so much said in the public sphere about the idea of a township serving a community, and that's always 100% true. What comes up during the budget process, however, is that service comes through professional services. There are best practices. We know that is the case for our police force. I work at a location that is tens of miles from the location here in Abington. Our community policing division has a reputation there. Right? We are known for our services. The same is true of our public works. I can't believe that a couple years ago we had someone move to tears during a public works discussion about our recycling, but there was such pride in that employee's comments because of the longitudinal excellence that has been a part of this department. None of that comes without investment. We can't make normal the idea that we can sit here and talk about not raising taxes and also expect services to the township from professionals to continue improving over the course of time. We are getting much closer to making some really hard decisions, and we have done that, as Commissioner Spiegelman alluded to just a minute ago. But I just want to say thank you to everybody from the township who comes to work every day and has a service mindset, but also has a professional mindset. They're going out and they're learning their craft. They're learning how to be the best in class at what they do. That takes investment to get them here, to retain them here, and to offer them the challenges and opportunities to grow while they are here. All of that is not necessarily seen in the documents of a budget, but it's required, and I am committed, and I know my colleagues on the board are committed to making sure that as we go forward, that we're making the necessary investments, as hard as they may be sometimes, to make sure that we have the best people here and that we can retain them. And all of that is done in the name of service. Thank you.
Well said, Commissioner Ball. Any further comments from commissioners in the room? And any of my colleagues who are on Zoom this evening? Anybody wish to speak? Okay. We will now open it up for public comment on the budget. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak to the budget?
You don't need to do that. I wanted to say to Commissioner Bowl, I applaud you because I think our recycling program here in Montgomery County is stellar. I know that money went into it and tax money went into it, but compared to other counties across the United States, I have family across the United States that have fake recycling programs, and I applaud any money that the Commission has approved on any of the recycling efforts. That's all.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else in the room that wishes to speak? And if not, then we will turn to Zoom.
Ms. Lehman, you're unmuted.
Laura Lehman, I absolutely cannot believe what I'm hearing. We've just had 3 or 4 commissioners setting people up for another hike in taxes. I am so stunned. I just can't even believe this. We had a 37% hike in our real estate taxes over just 2 specific years, 2020 and 2021. It was planned in 2019, right after Mr. Manfredi came. And amazingly, Mr. Manfredi just testified in court that he actually was hired here to reduce expenses. And immediately he took $3 million more out of our pockets. And he was given, although we lost $5 million during the first COVID year, we were given $19 million. So $14 million plus the $3 million that he has taxed us, which will be every single year. He has, in addition to what any other manager ever had. And he is spending like a drunken sailor on consultants that don't know our township and don't know. And we talk about recycling, and I appreciate that we have recycling, although we found out that some things we thought were being recycled weren't being recycled. So we're concerned about having that written out carefully for us so we know what the truth is. But we were given a presentation by Mr. Jones that we weren't going to need to spend money on trucks and whatnot, and that the whole recycling deal did not work. And now we have 2 giant trucks in there. I'm not sure which one is for the recycling that we need, but that apparently wasn't true. And we had a consultant, didn't we, helping with that? So we're a mess in where we're spending the money. And the other consultant, as I mentioned, we hired a consultant that just appears to have lost a lawsuit. Maybe there's an appeal or something coming, but they appear to have lost a lawsuit and cost the township that they consulted for before $4 million or more. So this is not okay, what's going on in this township. The residents needs are supposedly being handled by a consultant while the township is ignoring them. We've asked to have our website fixed. It's a hot mess.
Ms. Lehman, please conclude your comments.
So, I absolutely, Mr. Manfredi's home, when he charged us 37% increase in our taxes, in this time, his home went up a couple.
All right, Ms. Lehman, please, your comments period is over. Thank you. Okay. The motion was made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Back to you, Commissioner Schreiber.
Thank you. Item C is BOC 08-111-022, motion to award the Abington Township Building HVAC upgrade to Clipper Pipe and Service, Inc. in the amount of $1,371,000, and the electric upgrade supporting the HVAC upgrade to Electritech, Inc. in the amount of $202,460, and authorize the township manager to execute the contract, and I so move.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. I'm going to ask Township Engineer Cal Hassan to briefly comment.
Thank you, President Hacker. Good evening, Commissioners. So yes, on October 27th, we did open the bids for this project, the bids being the HVAC and the electrical. We received a total of 6 bids for the HVAC and 7 bids for the electrical contractor. We have checked the references on both contractors, and everything checked positively, and we actually had worked with both of them on prior similar projects. I would like to note that every time when we finish a design, we do prepare an opinion of probable cost for the construction cost. In this case, the probable cost for the project was $1.5 million. As you can see, the combination of both the HVAC and electrical, they come up to slightly north of $1.5 million. So they are very good bids. Now, what happens next? Should the commissioners award these projects, the next step will be to complete the contract documents with both contractors. We'll receive the required insurance coverage. We will get performance bonds from both. We will go ahead and facilitate the execution of both contracts between the township and the contractors. And then we will go ahead and set up a pre-construction meeting, at which time the specific schedule will be discussed. We will establish a notice to proceed date, and we will establish an emergency contact list as well that involves various township departments along with the contractors. With that, I'll answer any questions the commissioners have for me.
Thank you. Mr. Hassan, are there any questions?
Yeah, I do, President Hacker.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Sapone.
Hassan, question for you. When this project commences, are the contractors going to give a 2-week look ahead to the township and also progress meetings every 2 weeks? You guys going to plan that?
Commissioner Sapone, yes, that's exactly what's going to take place. So when we have the pre-construction meeting, all that will be discussed in specifics. To start the project, I believe we will have meetings on a weekly basis just to make sure that everything is hitting the ground and running. And then as we move further into the project, maybe we'll hold back a little bit and have it every 2 weeks. With that said, we're always available to answer any questions, requests for information, and we will make sure that we help facilitate the project to continue on schedule.
Now, you have a point person, a project manager assigned to this?
Yes, we do. It will be Robert Gould from my office. He will be running the both projects, the HVAC and the electrical. He will be the person in charge with it.
Okay, that's a good deal. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sapone. Are there any further comments or questions?
President Hecker, I have a quick question. This is Commissioner Weingrad.
Certainly,
Cal,
Commissioner.
how long do you think the project's going to take?
So based on the contract document, we had set up a specific duration for it. It's 180 days total from start to finish. As let's say we do move forward and then have the pre-construction meeting, then we're gonna get the actual schedule from the contractor. As we all know, there's supply issues. So we need to identify any potential lead time on some of the material that we need to make sure we hit the ground running and place the order for, should we stay within that duration. But the project right now is set for 180 days, unless there's unforeseen conditions such as the material supply.
Thank you, Cal.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Item D is BOC 09-111-022, motion to approve the settlement agreement between Comcast Cable Communications Management LLC and the Township of Abington, and I so move.
Did I hear a second?
Yes.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions from members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. And Commissioner Schreiber, before we get to the next motion, I'm actually going to turn to Township Manager Manfredi because there's been a slight change.
Thank you, President Hecker. As we looked at this item and the agenda item was out there, there have been a few questions that have come back to me and to the administration with respect to some of these provisions. So I'd like to respectfully request of the board that you take no action to approve this evening, but that there's a motion to move this agenda item to a future meeting so that we can do a further review and provide additional answers to those who made inquiries on this matter.
President Hecker, I'd like to make a motion that we move this item to the future addenda for further review, and I can't remember all the other words, but exactly as Manager Manfredi said.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions?
Excuse me, President Hecker?
Yes.
What item is that motion?
This is item E under new business.
Oh, item E, thank you.
You're welcome.
BOC 10-111-022.
So really what we're doing is we're tabling this item. So a motion, or do you just want to skip it? Yeah.
Well, we're basically just
Yeah,
putting it to a...
Then,
yeah.
I don't, since we're not continuing it to a date certain, since there's no advertising requirements as of yet, I don't really think we need there's no time limits. We don't really need a formal motion. We can just take no action on it and move on.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question about that first? And
Certainly,
maybe, I don't know if
Commissioner.
Deputy Chief Porter is on the line, but I do have residents that have asked me that there's really no process right now. They're trying to get permits to park on their street. What do they do? Or is it going to be enforced? What's going to happen? So I'd like just, maybe since this is going to be out there a little longer, and there could be people that are trying to do the right thing and get these permits for their street, what do they do? What would you like them to do?
That's one of the issues I have to discuss with the department.
Okay.
That we need to resolve. It's not just the question of what do they do in the meantime, how is that going to work going forward? And there's also some questions and concerns about the fees going from $2 to $7.50 and $8.50. And there's some issues that were presented to me this week, actually, that as we discussed this agenda item internally.
Okay.
So the short answer is, until we do the further review, I really can't answer it accurately.
Okay. I mean, there are people that want to park in front of their house that are concerned. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
And so, all right, so to be determined.
To be determined. We would like to, the reason we didn't give a date certain is because the hope would be to do it in December, that we can bring it back to you then. But depending on the other agenda items that we know are in the queue and some of the answers we get on this, it might be January. But we'll try to come up with a solution as an interim solution that works for the PD. and the citizens.
Okay. And the police department's happy to take calls or questions, inquiries about
Absolutely.
that? Perfect. Thank you.
We have the chief. Chief, do you wish to comment on this?
Yes, if it's okay.
Certainly.
President Baker. I just wanted to let the commissioner know, it will be status quo. We will not be enforcing anybody who has current residence, displayed on their vehicle. We will not be, doing anything, taking any action there. The reason this came up is because the police department has been doing it, and the ordinance that was in place came out of code enforcement. So there are a few things that Melissa and others from our police department are working on with the township administration to get this cleaned up. And I think we'll get it done, like the manager said, within the next couple months.
Thank you, Chief. Any further comments or questions? Okay, so we will follow Solicitor Clark's advice, and we will just not take any action and now move to item F.
And the last item this evening is under new business is BOC 11111022, review and approve the minor land development application LD 2204 521 Morden Road, solar array panel, and I so move.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions from members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner Schreiber. We will now turn to matters of the Finance Committee, and for that, I will call upon Commissioner Stewart-Weingrad.
Thank you, President Hecker. First up, we're to receive the Treasurer's report. Is Treasurer Blumenthal on the line?
I am, Commissioner.
Good to hear.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to give my report as usual for the monies received by the various departments of the township and deposited into Republic Bank for the month of October 2022 and year-to-date. So for the month of October, $1,531,246 was deposited as compared to the prior year, last year for the month of October of $2,159,037, which is a variance of a negative $627,791. As for the year-to-date, we brought in, it was deposited of $72,214,678 compared to the prior year of $69,736,894, with an increase over the prior year-to-date of $2,477,784. As for the real estate taxes collected, we've already hit our 98%, which doesn't usually happen until next month. 98% collected with 2% remaining. We brought in $40,723 compared to October of 2021 of $40,974, with a loss of 251 over the prior year's October. And year-to-date, we have $32,482,509 with $801,745 remaining to be collected by the end of the year. And that's my report. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Treasurer Blumenthal. Any questions from commissioners in the room? Questions from commissioners at home? Okay, thank you, Treasurer Blumenthal. Good to hear from you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Next up, agenda item FC 01-111-022, motion to approve the September 2022 expenditures in the amount of $2,817,182.22, and salaries and wages in the amount of $2,132,472.36, and authorizing the proper officials to sign vouchers and payment of bills and contracts as they mature through the month of December 2022, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioners Brodsky,
Yes.
Rothman,
Yes.
DePlacido,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Weingrad,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
DePone,
Yes.
Carswell, Spiegelman,
Yes.
Bowl,
Yes.
Schreiber,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Vice President McKee,
Yes.
President Hecker.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last item, agenda item FC 02-111-022, motion to select Barbacane Thornton and Company to act as Township's independent auditors for calendar years ending December 31, 2022, 2023, and 2024, and authorize the President and Township Manager to execute any appropriate agreements, and I so move.
Second.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions from members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And that would conclude the Finance Committee agenda items for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Weingrad. We will now open it up for public comment on general matters of township business, and we'll start with any residents who may be in the boardroom.
Once you have now passed this zoning text amendment, what is the next step? Anyone can answer.
I can defer to Township Manager Manfredi, but there would have to be action taken by the applicant initiating the land development process, which has various different components to it as to timing, what they submit, how long it takes for review, but there will be active public engagement throughout the process, and in my newsletter and other dynamics that we as a township have for people to stay up to date and be able to review the materials to the extent that those materials are ones that are published for public consumption.
The ordinance becomes effective 5 days from its approval, unless someone appeals. So the ordinance will be effective within 5 days of today's date. And as Commissioner Rothman just said, the next step is on the applicant as to whether or not when they submit their land development plans.
And if we want to appeal your decision as a citizen, do we have standing to appeal?
You do.
And to whom do we file the appeal?
The Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas.
Is there a particular judge assigned to these matters?
There would not be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other residents in the room that wish to speak? And if not, we will turn to Zoom.
Ms. Slayman, you're unmuted.
So, fascinating meeting. I wanted to share, I was horrified to hear that we have, plans already in the works here to increase our taxes on top of that absolutely horrific tax increase and the COVID money as well. So I have a fundraising idea for you. I think so that we don't need a tax increase. Every time Mr. Manfredi says the word strategic, he should put a quarter in a piggy bank, and we will not need to raise taxes, I promise you. I would like to say that we have literally, you have Raf Tellis hired to find out what our needs are while you ignore them. We need to have that website fixed. It's ridiculous that we don't have the meetings and the minutes and the videos and everything right on one line for each meeting, that we have to go to multiple pages and read through giant paragraphs. And we've told you that endlessly, and it's still that way. We have asked you to put the salaries in the budget with the people that earn them, and we can't get you to do that. We can't get you to do any of the things we want you to do. We have asked you before to help people understand zoning issues, and there is absolutely no help with that. This is totally against the interest of the people that you serve. No budget here ever should be made again without literally the way it was in 2017, which I sent to all of you. that has the departments, the people, the salaries, and the expenses with a brief paragraph that explains it. Mr. Manfredi has dismantled this township such that corruption would be easy. There's an article by an FBI agent that just came out today, and I'll send it around to you. It literally talks about that being how they did it in Allentown and how they do it everywhere. They make it so difficult for you to oversee that you give up. Nifty 50s, that variance was illegally granted. There is no way in the world that that property can't be developed. It just can't be developed at that price. Nobody would be able to put something in that got that much money, except that you are zoning to allow that. There is not an undevelopable property or a property. I tried to rent it once myself. The guy told me to go take a hike. So he wasn't even trying to rent it. He was trying to get it zoned for something more.
Ms.
So-
Lehman, please conclude your comments. You're
Okay.
approaching 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm very concerned that Mr. Manfredi testified in court that he was sent here or brought here to reduce expenses. He has done the opposite. The handwriting is on the wall. Please, this is not okay with us. We need to do better for the residents that you serve. And
Ms. Lehman, your time has expired. Thank you for your comments.
President Hecker?
Manager Manfredi.
I want to thank Ms. Lehman for her comments, whether they be accurate or not. I appreciate her right as a citizen to make them. One comment I do want to mention is not related to anything I said, but related to folks in the room pointing out that, in particular, Commissioner Schreiber did not say there will, in fact, be a tax increase next year, but wanted to make sure that although, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Schreiber, but if, just for people to be mindful that not every year is going to be a year with no tax increase.
Thank you, you are correct. I did not say that there is going to be. I said that this year we were fortunate to not have one.
So I just wanted to make that clear for everyone, that it is not planned for next year. We do not know if there will or will not be. With respect to salaries and those things, I certainly would not apologize for our producing a budget that is more transparent, that includes the wages and salaries of people and goes beyond what was done in 2017. Frankly, it is a very transparent document. If someone chooses to read the long version in every page, we welcome it. That's why the information is there. There are numerous schedules. It is online to be more transparent and more available to people with greater information. People don't have to read it all. People can read as little or as much as they would like. So I think the team has done an incredible job. I believe that the Board of Commissioners asked us to be more transparent. In fact, I've heard Ms. Lehman talk about how we need to have a document online that is real time, and we're there, we're launching that. So I think we're doing a lot of things that are helpful to the residents and that are meeting the goals of the board. I'm not going to comment about some of the other things that were said, but I will say that nothing is being done to pave the way for corruption. Thank you, President Hecker.
Thank you, Manager.
President Hecker, may I make
Yes,
a
Solicitor.
quick comment?
Yes, Solicitor Clark,
I know
please
it's
do.
a little unusual, but twice tonight a speaker has mentioned about Mr. Manfredi testifying, and that was a case that happened a few weeks ago where the township was sued, and Mr. Manfredi did testify on behalf of the township, and the Judge Branca, in reaching his decision, specifically pointed out the credibility of Mr. Manfredi's testimony as one of the main reasons that he found in favor of the township, and one of the main reasons that it was determined that the township hadn't done anything wrong in this lawsuit. And as I said, Judge Branca specifically referenced Mr. Manfredi's credibility as one of the reasons in reaching his decision, and I just think that needed to be pointed out.
Yep. Thank you, Solicitor Clark. I appreciate that. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you for your time.
President Hacker.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Zappone.
I wanted to make a statement last month. Can I just make that real quick right now?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just to let everybody know, the Edge Hill Tyson project has been completed. And I must have said this 1,000 times, but I really want to thank Solicitor Clark for helping this project go smoothly and to push it forward and getting it done. Mike, I really can't thank you enough for being there with me every step of the way to get this project completed. I just wanted to say that, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zappone. Appreciate that. And with that, we are adjourned. Have a pleasant evening.